Good afternoon and welcome back to Law and Crime Trial Network. As you can see, we are neck deep in the retrial of Henry Segura. We're looking at some of not quite the interrogation video because he wasn't a suspect at the time, but some of the interview video that we saw here in the first trial is being replayed in the second trial. Let's jump right into court and take a listen. Welcome back. So it appears that the officers are coming off the stand right now. We're going to take a break right now and talk to our great guests and get that expert legal analysis we have got here at the Law and Crime Trial Network. I'm joined with Jody Morales as well as Brian Wagner. Both of you, good morning, or good afternoon, sorry, and thank you for coming. Retrial. I know a lot of us always go back and forth about who has the advantage, what do these kind of retrials look like. But for this kind of case, Brian, we were kind of talking about it outside when we were getting our makeup and doing our whatnot. Brian obviously has the better hairstyle than I do. But jury deadlocks of 8-4 to acquit. We've got this theory of this drug cartel that's always going to be looming in the background. From a legal standpoint, this seems like it might be not the worst case for the defense. What do you think?
So you and I were talking about in Brooklyn, which we're both Brooklyn guys, there's an acquittal very easily. It's probably an acquittal in the Bronx. In Tallahassee, I don't know. But I know from a defense case, I love it. There's a known other suspect, someone else who we expect to come testify that he actually set it up. I mean, this is a case, I have no idea why the prosecutor is taking it to a jury.
Yeah, and Jody, this is a heart-wrenching case. I mean, we have the victims there. We have Brandy Peters, who is the defendant's girlfriend. We have her twin daughters who are 6 years old, and the child they share together, 3 years old. I mean, I'm not trying to make light of it, it's tragic, but we're here to figure out whether or not this evidence proves him guilty. From my understanding, a big theory of the case here is that he did this to get out of paying child support. But we find out he voluntarily put himself on child support. I know quite a few guys on child support. I can probably count on one hand how many have voluntarily put themselves on child support. I can't imagine why you would then turn around and kill that person because of child support.
Right. I mean, I think that this motive of it, child support, back pay is kind of crazy. I don't think that it actually fits in to the crime itself. I think this crime was extremely heinous. It's scary. It's sad. But given that he put himself on it, I mean, really, what are we talking about here? It doesn't make any sense. And I think that the defense attorney did an excellent job in his opening statement debunking that theory.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out because I agree with you that it seems like a debunked theory. Is a prosecution going to push forward and keep on that theory? We don't know, but we're going to go jump right back into court, see what more testimony we have to hear. So it appears they're taking a short break in court, about 10 minutes, but you never know, it could be a little bit longer. So while we've got the time, we're going to talk to our guests both in studio and via Skype. Again, I'm joined with Jody Morales, Brian Wagner, and via Skype we have Gigi Gonzalez. Gigi, how you doing today?
Hey, Brian, good to be here. How are you doing?
Great, great. Always a pleasure to have you here. I actually wish I was in Miami with you. It's getting a little chilly in New York, but
here too.
We've got this great quadruple murder trial, or retrial, sorry. That's very interesting. Now, they're just laying out the foundation for us. We know that there are 4 victims in this case: Brandy Peters, Tamia Peters, Tanaya Peters, and Javante Segura, the last being the shared child between the defendant and the first victim, Brandy Peters. We've heard different theories or heard different timelines, but there's this ever-looming question of, was this a mob hit? And I think it boils down to beyond a reasonable doubt. And I kind of want to talk about that with our guests right now. Gigi, there's a lot of theories floating around. How do these theories apply when you think about the heavy burden that the prosecution has?
Well, that burden, proving beyond a reasonable doubt, means that the state's got to prove, beyond any single reasonable doubt that comes to mind that this person did it. And it's a very high standard because the defendant's liberty is at stake, and it should be a high standard. And when you have so many different theories at play, two, right? You've got money as a motivating factor. Well, if that's the case, then the cartel's got a higher motivation because they've got $100,000 on the line versus the $20,000. If it's a matter of getting rid of this woman, the cartel has a better bet on that because she was skimming money from them and disloyal to the cartel. And anybody who has ever dealt with any sort of gang-related issues knows that they are very family-oriented, very close-knit, and they don't like people stepping out of lines. So for the prosecutors to be able to convince the jury beyond a reasonable doubt, they're going to have to really downplay this mob-style looking hit.
Now, I'm sure that all of you guys would probably agree with me that every time one of our family members sees some kind of criminal case in the news, they call us up and be like, it's gotta be this. And we're end up explaining, it's like, nah, the law kind of works a different way. And I always explain this to jurors, to my family members. If you get a room full of lawyers, I bet you we will all have different interpretations of what beyond a reasonable doubt is. Got a room full of lawyers, so let's check and see if my theory works. Jody, when it comes to beyond a reasonable doubt, and all these theories that are kind of floating around here, how do you see that standard apply as it works out in this type of case?
I mean, here we've got a dearth of evidence, right, against the cartel, in my opinion, right? There's a calling card, there's the spade, right? There is, I think even the manner in which the bodies are stacked is something that could be gang related. I think that with all of that evidence, in that light, really proving this case against the defendant is going to be a huge hurdle. Not even the DNA is matching up, or there's not enough there isn't sufficient evidence there to really point the finger at him. So I feel like the prosecutors have a huge, huge hurdle to overcome with the evidence that's before the jury right now.
Yeah. Now, Brian, I'm sure you've heard these words before as a former prosecutor and now defense attorney. It must be an honest doubt, an actual doubt, not an imaginary doubt. I mean, this is what we get from the criminal jury instructions of New York as to what a burden of proof means. There's some honest, actual doubts here, and I'm not sure why there was a struggle for the 4 people in the last jury who said, nah, he's guilty. Because you remember, it was 8-4 to acquit, not 8-4 to find guilty. Again, same question. How do you see the burden of proof kind of looming in this case and how it might affect the jurors?
What's funny, you read my mind. What I was actually going to is, as well, the criminal jury instruction. As you said, it's an actual doubt. And you start talking about what those actual doubts are. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what we know. The gang member who's in jail, he's going to testify, and he's going to tell you he set up the hit. He set it up for all of these reasons. You don't believe him? Fine, but that's still an actual reason why to doubt Mr. Segura's guilt. And then you have the other, Mr. Hayward, and I forget the third person's name, who also were implicated as well. There's so many potential other people that committed this murder for much better motives, as Gigi mentioned, than Mr. Segura's $20,000 for child support that he already volunteered to pay.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how the prosecution ties this together. We always say here that sometimes the benefit or the prosecution has a better hand at a retrial, but this one I'm not too sure. We're going to continue with more in this case and others after the break.